that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. More protest in Epping tonight. This time, more about policing methods over the course of the last few days, as we learn that with the cards that those that cross the channel are given, over 6,000 of them have been using them in betting shops. How much more of this is the public going to put up with? Crime is at a 20-year high, despite everything we've been told by successive Home Secretaries. Who's actually going to do something about it? And it's happened. It was well flagged, but Corbyn's new party has been launched today. What does it mean for the Labour movement? What does it mean for British politics? All of that and much more coming up after the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Nigel. Very good evening to you. Let's get you up to date with our latest headlines. Ghislaine Maxwell is understood to be meeting officials from the US Department of Justice amid growing pressure on the Trump administration to release more of the Epstein files. Ghislaine Maxwell, currently serving a long sentence of 20 years for sex trafficking, is a long-time associate of Epstein. The White House, meanwhile, has denied claims in US media that President Trump's name appears in documents relating to the late convicted sex offender and has described reports that Trump was informed about this in May as fake news. He is under mounting pressure to follow through on campaign promises to release files related to the disgraced financier. Essex police are bracing for further disruption outside a hotel housing asylum seekers following days of volatile protests. 16 people have now been arrested after a series of demonstrations outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, which erupted last week after a migrant staying there was charged with sexual assault. He has denied the charges and will face trial next month. Officers described scattered incidents of violence targeting police and property. The Police Federation has described the disorder as a warning of rising unrest, which has exposed cracks in forces across the country. Local resident Lindsay Thompson has explained why she has taken part in the demonstrations.
Because this is a very small town and it's always been a very safe town to bring up our children, and my children are grown up here. And since the hotel has taken in, reports say today 140 men are here, it no longer feels safe.
The Prime Minister and his Indian counterpart have hailed an historic day after signing a free trade deal worth £6 billion to the British economy. Under the agreement, it will be cheaper to export cars and whisky to India and Indian textiles and jewellery to the UK. The deal, which took nearly 3.5 years to agree, also sets out a plan to tackle illegal migration and work closely on defence, climate and health. Jeremy Corbyn says he and Zara Sultana have released some details of their newly formed political party, saying real change is coming. The MP for Islington North has said that the system is rigged, and he's called for a mass redistribution of wealth and power. However, Mr Corbyn has denied that his new party, which has yet to be named, will do for the left what Reform UK has done for the right.
Reform only offer a message of division and blame. All they do is say that every social problem in our society is somehow or other the fault of extremely vulnerable minorities. They are a dangerously divisive force in our society. What we're offering instead is to bring people together so we collectively face the issues of poverty, the issues of bad housing, the issues of underfunded education. So we face those issues together. Reform are a road to danger, not a road to any improvement in people's lives.
And the wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died at the age of 71. He reportedly suffered a cardiac arrest at his home in Florida and was later pronounced dead in hospital. Hogan, whose real name was Terry Bollea, was the biggest name in the sport in the 80s and 90s, credited with transforming wrestling and turning it into mainstream entertainment. He also had his famous Hulkmania fan base. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, unsurprisingly, the migrant hotel story runs on and on. Protests again today in Epping, outside the Bell Hotel. Interestingly, this time, it's less about the individuals in the hotel and what they're accused of, and it's more about the way Essex police have organised things. And I have to say, can you imagine if there was a Palestinian march through London and there was a counter-Jewish march to it? Can you imagine that the police would escort the Jewish march up to the Palestinian march to meet them face-to-face? Of course they wouldn't, because they would know that violence would erupt. And yet that is exactly what happened in Epping a couple of days ago, and people are pretty furious about it. We also learned today, it was a Daily Mail story, that these asylum seekers are given what are called Aspin cards. They get about 40 quid a week to spend on an Aspin card, and we learnt that in the last year, 6,500 of these young men have been using the money to spend in betting shops. And I have to say, every story that comes out around these undocumented young males coming into Britain, about the cost of it, about what it all means, is pushing people to a point, I think, of increasing anger. So how much more of this can the public endure? Love to get your thoughts. Farage at GBNews.com. I am joined in the studio by Fiona Lally, campaigns coordinator for the Revolutionary Communist Party, though I suspect that is past tense, given what's happened with Jeremy Corbyn today, but we'll talk about that. I'm joined by Lord Glasman, Labour peer and leader of the Blue Labour movement, and Linda Jubilee, for the first time on this programme, long-time journalist and broadcaster, worked for many channels over the years. Let's start with the view of Revolutionary Communist, Corbynista. Do you understand, Fiona, why the protest began outside the Bell Hotel just a few days ago?
Yeah, I do understand. These protests are the result of capitalist media and capitalist politicians like yourself.
Capitalists?
Spending all of their political career. I mean, your political career is really built on weaponising the fears and the insecurities that people have in their lives.
What, being raped?
And horrific things, the most horrific things that can happen to people. You weaponise these events for your political career, which is built on lies, and you say that the problems, the source of all of this, comes from other poor people in society, rather than the real criminals, the biggest criminals, the people who are responsible, not just for horrific individual acts of violence, but the systemic violence that people face every single day as a result of austerity,
so if you
as
were
a result of the cost of living crisis.
If you were a mum...
And that's the result of capitalism and Starmer.
No, this has got nothing...
That's what you're distracting.
Let me
distracting from
look, it's Fiona, it's all good textbook stuff, but I'm going to put a human point to you, right? A non-political point to you. If you were a mum living in that part of Essex, and you knew that a young male, undocumented male, God knows where he came from, had been charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl, would you as a mum in that part of Essex be happy to let your teenage kids out?
Of course, it's a horrific thing that has happened.
Would you be happy?
Can say that.
Answer my question.
It's not very profound to say that rape or assault is a bad thing. Everyone can agree on that.
So would you as a mum...
If you were genuinely concerned...
No. Would you as a mum... Would you as a mum living in Epping be concerned about what was going on?
I'm sure many mums are concerned. There are many people on these protests are concerned. Some of them, we can say, are not just concerned. Some of these people are verified neo-Nazis, right? Fascists.
I'd like Antifa with masks chucking bottles at the police.
And you're weaponising that concern.
No, I'm not.
You're weaponising that concern.
I'm sorry,
And by doing these lies, you're defending the biggest criminals in Britain. That's what your career is about.
I'm not far right. I'm worried about my kids. Make Epping safe again.
Sure.
Linda, as a mum, do you understand why these protests started?
I understand precisely why those protesters are out there. I've got 3 children. Probably one of them isn't very far from your age. And if my daughter had to deal with anything like the young girl, which was the target of the alleged assault, I would be tremendously worried. Now, what I think is happening here is I think you're intellectualising and theorising the situation. How many asylum hotels have you been inside?
I have been inside.
Right, well, I've been inside 5, and I've met hundreds. Let me finish. You had your turn. I then went inside 5 hotels and I delivered 3 separate English language programmes to try and empower women. I was the Women's Empowerment Director of an Afghan charity. So when people talk to me about me being too hard and too right, let me tell you that I fought in the trenches when it mattered to those women. But I will also tell you that when I was up at the House of Commons, and actually I got into conversation with one of the borough commanders in London, and he told me he was so concerned that one of the hotels on his patch was a powder keg because it was a male-only hotel. I listened to him because I'm not listening, therefore, to an intellectual debate. I'm listening to someone who is genuinely worried about what might happen at one of these hotels.
And Linda, it's fair to say, you know, you've worked with Afghan women and well done you. But it's true, isn't it, that these young men that come from Afghanistan, for example, are coming from a culture in which women, frankly, aren't even second-class citizens. Their attitudes to how they can behave towards women are culturally entirely different to what we would accept.
Very different. One of the things that... Because there were many moments that really gratified me, and one of them was an elderly woman who, not only could she not write, she didn't know how to hold the pen. And that is because, she told me, she came from a family where she wasn't valued. She was just like a human incubator or a servant for the family. The first time she saw her name written down on a piece of paper, she cried. Wow. So I was dealing with people like that. So it matters to me. It matters enormously to me.
I don't think it does. I think you're trying to tell us...
Are you saying Linda's wrong in what she's saying?
I think that you're trying to pretend that you have a genuine solution or a genuine cure.
That's extraordinary.
For the problems
that is extraordinary to say that to me.
Religions.
Extraordinary.
And I'm here because I want to say the truth. I agree that Britain is a powder keg. You said... Let me finish.
Why is it a powder keg?
I agree that Britain is a powder keg right now. There is so much anger in society, and people are really angry in Epping and in loads of other places as well. That anger isn't just expressed through protests outside of hotels. That anger is trying to be expressed in so many different ways, through strikes that are taking place, because people are angry over their conditions in life. They're angry over the NHS. They're angry. It's not different.
You're right about frustration inside.
And when you try and siphon it off, it's part of your defence.
This is about a community.
You don't want to talk about the huge, horrific situation in Britain today.
Are you happy for young, undocumented males to come into this country in huge numbers?
When you say this, again, that is not the reason that everyone's life in Britain is getting worse right now.
Shall I tell you why those young mums?
That is not the reason.
Shall I tell you why those young mums in Essex are so worried?
They've said themselves they're scared about violence. And violence comes from the whole of the British establishment.
Do you know what? We're a free speech channel, which means you listen to everybody. Afghan men are 22 times more likely to be convicted of rape than British-born males. There is a massive cultural
If you want
problem.
to talk about, rape and assault, let's talk about the cover-up of the Church of England. Let's talk about the cover-up of the BBC.
Let's give him a chance.
Let's talk about Trump.
I tell you what, behave with manners or disappear. It's entirely up to you. This is a fair, we're fair to everyone. This channel, I tell you what, the BBC wouldn't have you on tonight. And we beat the BBC in numbers yesterday across the day. This channel gives everybody free speech, but respect the right of others. Morris.
Yeah, and the Revolutionary Communist Party used to be intellectually robust, so I'm also upset about that. Yeah, the country is absolutely disgusting. And just something, Nigel, I don't call them asylum seekers anymore. They're coming from France. They can claim asylum in France. These are illegal immigrants. Yeah. They're unwelcome and we don't want them. And I think we've got to really concentrate on this, that there's a democratic will in the country, and there's been repeated time and again in democratic elections, that they want the sovereign nation-state, the democratic sovereign nation-state, to get a grip on the borders. Right?
Absolutely true.
This is what we...
Well, I guess if you don't control your borders, you're not really a sovereign state, are you?
That's the point.
Yes.
And we went through that, Nigel, together in the Brexit referendum. We've established a democratic mandate for sovereignty, for the control of borders. By the way, you can't have socialism without sovereignty. You can't have socialism without state control or state direction of the economy. But this used to be mainstream Marxism, which obviously doesn't matter in the Revolutionary Communist Party anymore.
If you want to talk about Marxism,
No, this is serious.
In a couple of minutes, we will talk about
this whole systematic establishment.
Morris, keep going.
So what we've got to do is absolutely make sure that we have effective control of borders. Now, that's where I want the conversation to go now towards action.
Well, the problem is the public now have no confidence. This government was elected saying it would smash the gangs. And the argument I've made time and time again is it doesn't matter whether you catch all the smugglers, give them life sentences, the financial rewards are so great, the more people will come up, won't they?
Absolutely. And I've had this conversation on several other programmes on GB News, and my view is to try and deal with this situation, you've got to pull on all the levers. You've got to be operational, so you do have to do something hands-on about the boats, but you have to have a strategy in place where you start dealing with this, because this is a network of traffickers. This is not just, you need to get the drug dealer on the corner of the street. You have to go right to the source of drug dealing. And the same is true with human trafficking. You have to get to the network and you have to cut the head off the snake.
But even if... No, I'm going to argue, Linda, that sounds fine, but it doesn't work.
It's hard to do.
But it doesn't work. Because you think about it. A boat with 90 people on, crossing the channel, each paying €2,500 to €3,000. The financial rewards are so great that even if you cut the network, others will find ways to do it. It's the pull factors that are the problem. I mean, the very fact that you're given an Aspin card that you can use at the local betting shop kind of sums up why people are coming, I think. I tell you what, we'll draw stumps on that because I want to have a really good debate. And, hey, Fiona is no longer part of the Revolutionary Communist Party. She's joined the Corbynistas today, and in a minute she'll tell us why and what it means. All of that in just a moment.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who would have believed it? Those of us of a certain age were brought up to believe that because of a first-past-the-post electoral system, there would only ever be two parties, and maybe just a few Liberals here and there. But it was impossible under first-past-the-post for fragmentation of British politics to happen. But it is happening, and I have a feeling it's happening really rather rapidly. So, much anticipated, much flagged, but Jeremy Corbyn today has launched his new left-wing party.
It's democratic, it's grassroots and it's open, and Zara and I have sent out this statement today which has had a massive pickup already. The Independent Alliance of MPs have sent out a broadly similar, identical statement in support of it as well, and that we will then develop from there, but the broad political principles are there, and that's the important thing, important message to get across. Listen, people have had enough out there. They're fed up with seeing cuts to their services, threats to personal independence payments, continuing child poverty, waspy women shortchanged by the government, and the only thing they can find money for is more weapons of war.
Now, there is something of an appetite out there for a party to the left of Starmer's Labour, and a snap poll out this afternoon shows that actually they'd be on about the same as the Labour Party, because they take a big chunk of Labour votes. They'd also hit the Green vote quite hard as well. Now, I'm not sure what the name of it is. I thought it was launched as Your Party, but Zara Sultana doesn't seem to think that's the case. Fiona, this is a big moment on the left of politics.
It is a big moment, and I think it's a great thing. I think this has been a long time coming. I think the fact that 80,000 people have already signed up to join this party shows how much people are yearning for a genuine alternative to Starmer, an alternative that I don't think Reform is offering. And I think that young people are going to join. I think in the short term, talking about an end to austerity, a free Palestine, nationalisation, genuine nationalisation, these are the things that people actually want. And I think in the future, you know, there's been a huge vacuum in politics for a while. And to a certain degree, Reform was tapping into that, anger. I actually think that this party, if it has a really genuinely militant socialist programme, I think in the future it will take votes away from Reform as well, because it's going to concentrate on working class issues. It's going to concentrate on the sort of politics that could actually unite people. And I think that this is a historic moment, and I would encourage as many people as possible to join this party, which is going to be, it's supposed to be a democratic party, so that we can help build it, we can help form it. And I think the next 4 years, the next couple of years are going to be very, very different
Morris,
to what the last couple of years.
What does it mean? I mean, it has actually been increasingly obvious that there has been a space on the left in politics. And we've seen a Green vote going up. We've seen 4/5 people Gaza independence with a very strong sort of Kashmiri Pakistani vote in some of the sort of inner cities. So there has been a gap on this. But what is it? Is this good news or bad news for what you want the Labour Party to be?
Well, I think it's very good news. I really welcome it because the sort of Islamist public sector, working class concerns that don't include mass immigration, that cuts wages. I think it's time for them to put their case to the people.
Yep.
I think the poll is greatly inflated. Obviously, eliminates.
Well,
that.
it's brand new, but it's just a snapshot.
I think it
doesn't
actually
really show there's an appetite there.
Yeah,
and that's the point.
For those of us in Labour who want the party to be a patriotic socialist party, it's very good news because it removes a huge amount of static and noise, sort of student union politics, that sort of thing, and we can concentrate on being a serious. No, I mean Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party. I lived through that.
Yeah.
And it was an extraordinary. I mean, someone who went to the country supporting a second referendum on Brexit but wouldn't tell anybody how he voted. It was like being led by a sort of, geography teacher at school.
But he
who
was
basically
popular with some people.
Yes, that's the point.
And he did get, for a
there
brief
is
moment, a youth wave,
Okay, so let's get to the point. There is a serious Islamist public sector union constituency that wants a different form of politics.
Yeah.
I welcome it being outside Labour.
About Islamist public sector.
Well, the Islamist factor is, of course, very much a part of this. Jeremy sits with the full Gaza independence.
No, I don't think anyone's scared. Let me just say that I'm not at all frightened. Of course not. I mean, I'm a grown woman.
Well, we'll see.
I've been in conflict zones, so I'm
certainly not frightened. I really
But what I'm saying is I actually admire you. I think that it's tremendous to go to a new party. I think it's a good idea.
I'm joining this party as a revolutionary.
It's an addition to the political landscape, and I think it's to be applauded. I may not agree with you, but I live in a country where I'm allowed to disagree, and you're allowed to disagree with me. But I think you're a valuable ingredient going forward.
Linda, I think that point is a really fundamentally important point. It should be a free country, and they are going to present a fresh choice. But I want to ask you, Fiona, about something. I got this quote from you. It's happening. I've signed up. I want this party to fight for real socialism, for real change. That means revolution. What do you mean by revolution?
I mean, we need to completely overhaul the capitalist system. I think capitalism is a system which is based on profit, right? The way the economy is run is on the basis of profit and not need. What I'm arguing for is an economy that's planned on the basis of need, where ordinary workers can have control over their lives, a say over what is going on.
But you have to pay for that.
Yeah, that's right. Can I just ask, where do you get the money from?
And that means nationalising without compensation.
You can do
in a serious way. The major corporations.
But where do you get your tax
and actually, the majority of people, if you look at a lot of polling, the majority of people support nationalisation. They support things like bringing water
where do you get
into
the money
public
from?
Control. There is a lot of money in society.
Where is it?
I'll tell you. You know what's funny is there's also been protests outside of this.
No, tell me where the money is.
I'm telling you, outside of the hotels in Canary Wharf, right?
Yeah.
And people are angry about asylum seekers in a hotel in Canary Wharf. And if they turned around, they would see there's plenty of money in London sitting in Canary Wharf.
Okay.
London is the 6th richest city in the world. There's plenty of money.
How are you going to get
There's
that money?
plenty of money.
How are you going to get
through
that money?
expropriation, through nationalisation,
you're literally going to steal.
movement.
So are you prepared to steal people's
properties?
properties?
Those are the thieves. Those are the thieves. The people who sit in the Canary. Yes,
I tell you what.
bankers.
I tell you what.
The bankers. They are
I
thieves.
tell you what,
You don't think
Fiona,
they're thieves?
If you argue for nationalisation,
I think they go to work.
If you argue for fairness,
everyone goes to work.
You might get some votes.
Everyone goes to work, but some people are going to work every single day, and their lives are getting worse.
If you argue
Meanwhile,
for
billionaires.
I agree with
there
that.
are more billionaires today than there were a couple of years ago, and yet everyone else's life. Globally, there are more billionaires than there have been in the past. Look, whilst the working class is being devastated.
Listen, rich people, if you expropriate...
Who you defend?
If you expropriate people's legal property, and if you are genuinely prepared to go down that route, not only is there a mini-exodus, which Linda did refer to, of wealth creators, of job providers, we would be bankrupt within 18 months, literally bankrupt.
Who produces the wealth in Britain? It's not the bankers.
People who
it's
put
ordinary
up...
workers who
It's
work
actually people
every
who
single
understand
day.
growth.
And
it's not the people in Canary Wharf.
It's people who generate growth and build businesses. Those are the people.
And employ people.
And employ people, of course. How do you expect anyone to get a job if you don't back companies to grow?
Fiona, I've got to tell you, thank you. You have laid out your case very clearly. If that is the articulation of not just your view.
That's my view.
No, that's your view, and let's see where the party. Let's see where the party ends up. But I promise you, if you go down the route of thinking expropriation is acceptable
without compensation,
you will not win a single seat in Parliament. You'll get very, very few votes, and Britain will be knocking on the IMF's door within 6 months. But you've had your say, which is great. Thank you for joining us. At the moment, crime is at a 20-year high, despite us being told by Home Secretary after Home Secretary that it's falling. In a minute, we'll tell you why.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're off on your holidays this week, let's take a look at the weather across Europe. So, particularly hot for Italy and Greece, but further west, particularly windy for the Canary Islands and down the western coast of Portugal and in particularly the southwestern part of the Mediterranean. Thunderstorms for southeastern Spain, across France and northern Italy, but it's southern Italy and Greece that will be looking particularly hot, warmer than usual, and that heat is likely to last into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow, we have 2 zones of wet weather to watch out for. There's still some rain across parts of the southeast, but the front here is clearing away. Meanwhile, another front's coming in from the west, and that means we're going to see quite a bit of cloud feeding in across northern and western Scotland, also across Northern Ireland, and also a bit of wet weather coming in as we go through the early hours of tomorrow, albeit the rain's not looking particularly heavy. Elsewhere across much of the country, it's looking dry. There will be some clear skies around, but temperatures aren't going to drop a huge amount. It's pretty humid out there at the moment, and so with that, we could see some mist and fog patches developing in a few places. As we go through tomorrow morning then, apart from across some eastern, southeastern parts of Scotland, where there could be some sunshine, elsewhere it's going to be a fairly grey start and could be quite damp, a bit wet in some places, particularly towards the north and west. A similar story across Northern Ireland, quite cloudy with some outbreaks of rain. Much brighter though across much of England and Wales. Like I said, there could be some mist and fog first thing, but this should burn away pretty quickly. As we go through the day, however, that front is gradually going to feed a little bit further south and eastward, so across parts of northwest England, around some coastal parts of Wales, and maybe even into Cornwall, things are going to turn cloudier and there could be some rain. Further northwest towards the northern western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, some brighter spells, a few showers, but the best of the sunshine will be towards the south, where we're going to see temperatures peaking in the mid to high 20s Celsius. Looking ahead to the weekend, and it's going to be a bit showery at times. There'll be a swathe of showers feeding their way eastwards. These could turn quite heavy across parts of the southeast perhaps, and some more frequent showery bursts are likely towards the northwest, where it's going to be relatively breezy. And meanwhile, on Sunday, there will be some drier weather on offer, particularly towards more central parts.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Crime is at a 20-year high, despite successive Home Secretaries telling you that crime is falling. Whenever I've heard that, I've rather scratched my head. Let's have a look at this graph that shows you the rising crime. Now, not all crimes have gone up, but many have. Interestingly, I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Lawrence Newport, who is the founder of the Crush Crime campaign, and my panel, Lord Glasmond and Linda Jubilee, are still here. Lawrence, tell us how it is that we keep being told crime is falling, but you tell us it's at a 20-year high. How does it work?
Unfortunately, a lot of the figures that have been used by governments for quite significant amounts of time have not taken account of the rise in shoplifting. Shoplifting, amongst other crimes as well, is actually at a record high. It was a record high last year, and it got even worse again this year. There seems to be no real plan to deal with this. We now see it in police reports, but of course, I'm sure as anyone who's been to any shop locally, nearly all shoplifting is not reported. So the figures we're seeing today are the times that there's actually been reported to police, which of course is a fraction of the amount of actual shoplifting that's happening across this country right now.
And then there's fraud and scamming.
Yes.
Which has not been included in the figures that we've been told in the past. And that's also running at record levels.
Yeah, fraud is increasing year on year. Of course, it is easier than ever. You can clone people's voices. I mean, now with modern technology, you can actually clone people's faces. And you can do this all incredibly easily. You can, in fact, there is now a growing amount of fraud, which is simply calling someone with a voice they know and using information you can find on them online to try to extract money out of them. For instance, you get a call from your child saying that they need money right now, they need help. They're borrowing a friend's phone, that's why you don't know the number. They give you a different account details, send the money over. This is exploding and it is not being tracked and solved.
With the development of AI, this is going to become an even bigger problem.
Yes. It's trivial, in fact, at the moment.
But how have the politicians got away with telling us that crime is falling when it's actually been rising? Is it a lack of media scrutiny, do you think?
I think some of it's a lack of media scrutiny. I think it's also the case that by concentrating on some crimes in which they have concentrated and actually put effort into, they are moving away from actually focusing and listening to people on the streets who are telling them things, which we now see in the figures, like, my phone has been stolen, my friend's phone has been stolen, my partner's phone has been stolen. This is, in fact, why I set up Crush Crime, was the amount of people who spoke to me, who said, my phone's been nicked, my bike's been nicked, the police have done nothing. This told me something is going on, and it is not yet being reflected.
And, of course, one of the other reasons for not reporting crime is, well, twofold, really. One, you think the police would do nothing anyway. But two, if you start claiming on insurance for a mobile phone, you've lost one, you've lost another, your premiums start to go through the roof.
Exactly.
I suspect, Linda, that you were saying earlier that you live in a very nice town, but even there, shoplifting is rife.
Absolutely. You can see the evidence of shoplifting almost on a daily basis. I must say that the local police do appear to be taking this seriously, because for once in decades, I actually see bobbies on the beat. Which is very, very encouraging. But I think partly that's because the town where I live is a bit of a destination. So they know perfectly well, the authorities know perfectly well, that's the local authorities and the police, that unless they show their presence on the streets, it will be a big problem for my area.
Because of lack of tourism?
Because of lack of tourism. Because people come there, they go to the coffee shops, they go to the restaurants, and if people think that they're suffering from shoplifting all the time, which we are, then they won't be coming. We won't get the revenue, therefore we won't be able to... It's a momentum, it's a cycle, a positive cycle, and we thrive as a town and we don't want to lose it.
Do you notice, Maurice, in London, more and more people talking about crime?
Yeah, and it's impossible to live in London without having this mobile phone getting nicked on the street, out of your hand.
Yes.
I mean, that's palpable. And then a widespread... I mean, I think, Nigel, we've got to think imaginatively about deterrence and punishment. I really do. I mean, this is vital. I don't know what you think, I'm quite in favour of public humiliation of these shoplifters, of bringing back the stocks, pelting them with
these Labour peers are so right-wing.
The old ways or the good ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a matter of imprisonment. I mean, what I'm saying is you have... I had my phone tried to take out. You feel humiliated by it. There's this sense of genuine intimidation. So counter-humiliation. I mean, I really think we've got to think about...
No, I agree. The other crime is expensive wristwatches. I've got a friend who won't... His nice watches won't wear any of them into central London because he's just too fearful that it will be ripped off his arm.
Women won't wear jewellery walking down the King's Road, even in the middle of the day. That's how bad it's got. Lawrence, do you see signs that this government is taking this issue seriously?
Unfortunately, not at the moment. It looks as if their direction of travel is much more towards early releases and simply not building the prison space that's necessary at the speed that's necessary.
To be fair, they did inherit a difficult situation.
Exactly. In fact, there was 14 years of essentially no building prison spaces. It was around about 200 to 500 spaces added over 14 years.
With a population that rose by millions.
By several million. Yeah. And they increased prison spaces by about 500 places. Yeah. Labour has actually committed to a prison building programme, which they can be commended for, but they are unfortunately not doing it at the speed necessary. There are powers, there are abilities. In the past, we've done this, designate emergency prisons.
And I mean, I'm just saying, I'm privy to the conversations. There is a will to get policemen back on the beat, to get them on the street. That is certainly part. Yeah. But I think we've got to talk about alternatives to prison that are punishments. I'm really serious about this.
I'm listening.
You know, so when I say the stocks and all
ducking
that,
stools, is that part of your?
I think ducking stools maybe maligned, but certainly getting the rotten vegetables and fruit from the supermarket and people having a chance to express their disgust at what they've been through. I don't think that's such a bad idea.
I think some of this is also the case that because we've got such terrible sentences, we're talking here about half of crime in this country is committed by only 10% of offenders.
Well, isn't this the point? Isn't this the point? That this 10%, and by the way, anyone that goes to prison there should be an attempt to educate them, teach them a skill, to rehabilitate them, and a certain percentage will be rehabilitated, and we must give them that chance. But as you say, it's the recidivist 10%.
Which, by the way, on average, to be this 10%, they must have 15 or more offences to their name. Yeah. This is people that are hardened criminals, they're career criminals, they have chosen this.
Yeah,
and of course, if you're stealing phones, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, and that, Morris, is where the argument for prison's the right argument.
Yeah, no, I'm saying prisons for sure, but to think about just when it comes to, like, nicking stuff, shoplifting, personal humiliation,
they're running
mugging...
businesses. They're going into a well-known supermarket, scraping off all the fillet steak and then reselling it to restaurants. It's a business.
I mean, it's just...
It's an industry at this point now. It is the highest on record last year and again the highest on record this year.
Thank you, Lawrence. I think Crush Crime as a campaign is a fantastic initiative. I think just waking people up to the fact we've been conned for far too long on these figures is important. Thank you. Now, our What the Farage moment today is somewhat light-hearted, as Kemi Badenoch says that she could be Britain's equivalent to Milei of Argentina, and we've produced this little mock-up for you.
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, afuera.
Now, that was Millet explaining his public spending cuts. Gone, gone, gone. And, of course, he appeared with chainsaws.
That's right. Where's the chainsaw?
And sideburns that haven't been seen since the 1960s anywhere, I don't know. Early 70s. All right, fine. And yet, Morris, Argentina, which has had 100 years from being one of the richest countries on earth, 100 years of steady economic decline, he is actually beginning, and part of it is the big cuts to the public sector. He's beginning to turn it round, isn't he?
He really, genuinely is. And we've got to look at in Argentina, it's a bit like the last 30 years in our country on acid. I mean, the scale of state control, the patronage is incredibly corrupt. And what you got, Nigel, which is interesting, is that the Argentinian working class actually voted for it. I mean, they were so disgusted with the lanyard class. Dominate. I mean, that was a huge thing. A really privileged class of the educated dominating the state structure. So, I mean, this is certainly the dynamics. Now, let's see how it goes.
It's really interesting. Linda, you've watched world leaders. You've looked at leaders all over the world over a longish career. Milei's an extraordinary figure.
I think he is extraordinary, but the one thing I would raise a question about is why politicians often have this desire to say, I'm going to be like A, I'm going to be like B, whereas what they should be thinking about is who can I be on my own character, my own script. Frankly, that's what you do. And that's what resonates with the public. They like real people.
Authenticity.
It's an overworked word, but it's true.
And that's why Corbyn will get a few votes.
Because he's a conviction politician.
No, absolutely. You might disagree with him totally, but he is a conviction politician. Very good indeed. OK, in a moment, we'll look at anti-government protests in Ukraine and some worrying signs that Hong Kong may have an extradition deal in place with Britain, which would mean those that have protested against the Hong Kong government could be sent there.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We've known for a very long time that Ukraine was a country absolutely plagued by corruption, but we haven't really heard much of that since the Russian invasion, perhaps unsurprisingly. But now there are anti-government protests taking place in Ukraine, protesters out on the streets with their placards, with their billboards, we can see them in just a moment, saying, veto the bill, no to corruption at government. And this is all because what President Zelensky has done, he has taken oversight of two anti-corruption bodies into overtly political hands. There are also some upset that he hasn't had elections, but then I guess he has been fighting a war. Well, fresh back from Ukraine is Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, Member of Parliament, Conservative for Chingford and Woodford Green. Ian joins us down the line. Ian, hello. I made the point that prior to the war, you know, corruption in Ukraine was a very major issue, much talked about, perhaps one of the major barriers to them joining the European Union, if that's what they chose to do. What do you make of these protests that are happening right now?
Well, a couple of things that aren't properly reported. I was out there both in Kyiv when they were hitting it with rockets and also in Lviv I think the real issue here lies back in this. There's a frustration because they are trying to clear this up, and the US and the British and others are all trying to help out to sort out how you actually clear corruption. But in a war, it's a little bit more difficult. But what has happened is the existing institutions supposed to be doing this. This is Zelensky's point. He says they haven't really been doing the work they're supposed to have done. And so his idea was to try and take this under control and direct them and push them to do it. That's what this was all about, passing an act. That's what I was in with the government, talking to them about it. But of course, what a lot of outside are fed up anyway with some of the corruption, and what they're after now is they think, well, if he's taking it inside, he's not going to do anything about it. Yeah. So the question is whether you really think he wants to do something about it or not. And of course, I think he has to, because the questions about money, etc., will resonate badly for them if they don't clear this up. And they have cleared up quite a lot. But of course, it's worth reflecting on the fact every single country that left the Soviet Union had corruption. From Hungary right the way through to Poland, they've had to deal with it, but they've had assistance in that. The difficulty here is there's a war going on. It makes it very difficult to focus on this because, as you know, in a war, there are lots of opportunities for black marketeers, etc., to make hay when everybody else is at the front line. But it's pretty, it's pretty desperate there at the moment. So I hope they sort this out, because it's in nobody's interest that they carry on about this if they're rowing on it.
And of course, wartime leaders, they have their ups and downs, just as all leaders do at any other point. Churchill had some periods in 41, 42 when he wasn't perhaps as popular as historic myth would now tell us. And is perhaps a little bit of that what is happening to Zelensky?
It is, because, the war is, whilst Russia's making a bit of ground in some areas, the Ukrainians have actually won some territory back, but this grinding, pounding that they're taking, they're losing men. I mean, Russia's lost 1 million killed or wounded in the last 2 to 3 years. The Ukraine's lost probably about 300,000. But that on a country with a much smaller population is quite devastating. Most of them are young men. And of course, that has problems in the country. So they're tired of the war. Of course they are. They want to have peace. Everybody does. The question is, what kind of a peace can you have if Russia is insistent that they will have Ukraine? That's it. They're not prepared to negotiate on that basis. And that makes it very difficult because they have to carry on fighting, but they need support for that. But there has to be an end in sight to this. And that means either, for America, you either decide, as Trump may be doing now, that we're going to give them the weapons they need and get this damn thing sorted out, or you have to say, well, you have to settle at any price. And I just don't think that'll work well for East Europe or for NATO. So the key question here is, are we going to do this or are we not?
Yeah, I think Trump has lost faith in Putin pretty much completely, because I think he really believed that he could bring them together and strike a deal. He genuinely believed that, but it's not been possible. Ian, I must talk to you about a subject very close to your heart, and one that you have campaigned on rather brilliantly, I would say, for years. And we're hearing reports that there are plans to re-establish an extradition agreement, maybe even a treaty with China, whereby dissidents from Hong Kong, who we have given effectively refuge to, we literally have given them refugee status in this country, could be extradited back to Hong Kong. Is this really happening?
Yes. The minister has signed a letter, it appears, and it's now come to light that the letter has talked about 3 countries that they were going to reinstall extradition agreements. Now, bear in mind, we had an extradition agreement with Hong Kong, but not with China. And we suspended that, and we bullied the rest of Europe to suspend theirs too. Most of them did. Italy was very slow to do it. But that was to protect those Hong Kongers who were fleeing after, by the way, China trashed an international agreement, signed a British agreement. So they've all fled here. There's a lot of them here. They're all good people. They're all trying to work like mad. They're not loiterers. But the main thing is also people like myself, there's about 9 of us in Parliament, were also sanctioned. I and a group of us found out about the genocide in Xinjiang. We published that. I set up an organization called IPAC, Interparliamentary Alliance on China. We've got 43 countries in that and parliamentarians around the world. But Xi and China hate us for that. So when we travel abroad, we have to be very careful of where we go, because if we go to a country that's got an extradition agreement with Hong Kong or China, then they could throw a red notice at us, have us arrested pending any further extradition. And the same would happen here if we stupidly returned to an extradition agreement. And this is where this government has lost the plot, frankly. They are busy trying to give permission to China to build a super embassy in London where they'll have 200 more spies accommodated. They have sought China's money and seem to care not a damn about the fact they are the greatest threat to our freedom, our democracy, the rule of law. And all of this, on top of this, they're now going to sign an extradition agreement again with a country that thinks nothing of locking people up without trial. And Jimmy Lai, of course, over there is a very good example of that. So
Ian,
the government, it strikes me as appalling.
I'm not sure you're right about this. I'm not sure they've lost the plot. I think they know what they're doing. They're quite prepared to give in to China. They think that our economic future is going to be inextricably linked with China. And to be fair, that's what Chancellor Osborne thought himself just a few years ago. This is deliberate.
Well, it is, because I agree with you that this government is obsessed with growth because they've gone and screwed up the rest of the economy. And now what they think is China's going to run to their rescue with inward investment. I have to tell you, China has not done any inward investment to another country since 2017, and it's not about to start because its own economy has problems. Here's the deal. They want to dump their product on us. Cheap steel, cheap cars, cheap batteries, cheap arrays, many of them made by slave labor, and Miliband & Co. were happy to turn a blind eye to that until we stopped it. The truth is, this is craven and appalling. And if they do this, I promise you, we will have a major rebellion on our hands, because I'm not prepared to put up with this, one way or the other.
As ever, we understand exactly what you think. Thank you very much indeed. Well, coming up next will be State of the Nation, but before that, let's have a look at the all-important weather with Alex Burkill.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow, we have two zones of wet weather to watch out for. There's still some rain across parts of the southeast, but the front here is clearing away. Meanwhile, another front's coming in from the west, and that means we're going to see quite a bit of cloud feeding in across northern and western Scotland, also across Northern Ireland, and also a bit of wet weather coming in as we go through the early hours of tomorrow, albeit the rain's not looking particularly heavy. Elsewhere across much of the country, it's looking dry. There will be some clear skies around, but temperatures aren't going to drop a huge amount. It's pretty humid out there at the moment, and so with that, we could see some mist and fog patches developing in a few places. As we go through tomorrow morning then, apart from across some eastern, southeastern parts of Scotland, where there could be some sunshine, elsewhere it's going to be a fairly grey start and could be quite damp, a bit wet in some places, particularly towards the north and west. A similar story across Northern Ireland, quite cloudy with some outbreaks of rain. Much brighter though across much of England and Wales. Like I said, there could be some mist and fog first thing, but this should burn away pretty quickly. As we go through the day, however, that front is gradually going to feed a little bit further south and eastwards, so across parts of northwest England, around some coastal parts of Wales, and maybe even into Cornwall, things are going to turn cloudier and there could be some rain. Further northwest towards the northern western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, some brighter spells, a few showers, but the best of the sunshine will be towards the south, where we're going to see temperatures peaking in the mid to high 20s Celsius. Looking ahead to the weekend, and it's going to be a bit showery at times. There'll be a swathe of showers feeding their way eastwards. These could turn quite heavy across parts of the southeast perhaps, and some more frequent showery bursts are likely towards the northwest, where it's going to be relatively breezy. And meanwhile, on Sunday, there will be some drier weather on offer, particularly towards more central parts.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays,